So thank you for everyone, and I'm a doctor student at the University of Göttingen. And so today I'm going to talk about the construction of Guanxue in the Qing dynasty. So speaking of Guanxue, one dominant impression that Guanxue is a regional Daoxue school in Shanxi, which Zhang Zai established in the Northern Song dynasty and existed till the last emperor days. And recently, however, Miaw-fen and Wei suggest that Guanxue is a not self-evident concept, but a category that was constructed by Feng Congwu in the Ming dynasty, and mainly from Feng Congwu's Guanzhong learning. Guanxue Bian, Feng Congwu defined Guanxue as a neo-Confucius school of the Guanzhong, and setting Zhang Zai the founder without concerning Zhang Zai's old philosophy. He also suggested there is an unbroken line of transmission in Daoxue in Guanzhong, which traces back to King Wen, King Wu, and then to Zhang Zai, straight down to Ming Guanzhong scholars. Lu Miaw-fen and Wei also demonstrated several critical aspects in Feng Congwu's construction: the rising local consciousness and Feng Congwu's contemporary concern, and his intention to compete with their southern counterparts. For the orthodox narrative of Daoxue. So after Feng Congwu, Qing Guanzhong scholars continue to formulate Guanxue. For example, both Wang Xingjing and Li Yuanchun wrote sequels to Feng Congwu's Guanxue Bian. And how did they formulate Guanxue? This part remains unknown. This is what I'm going to talk today. I will discuss whether there is any new characteristic in constructing Guanxue in the Qing dynasty. And since their construction of Guanxue was in the Qing intellectual world, unlike that of Feng, did the critical aspect in Feng's construction still matter for them? And in the last, I would like to go further to ask what their formulation of Guanxue could contribute to our understanding of other regional schools and our conventional image of the Qing intellectual enterprise. So to answer these questions, I will talk three scholars from different philosophical background. All of them made considerable contribution to the construction of Guanxue in the Qing dynasty. The first two are Li Yong and Wang Xingjing. They are labeled as Yang Ming adherents. And the last one is Li Yuanchun, a Cheng-Zhu follower. To start, I like to brief introduce a historical background of Guanzhong in the first half of the Qing dynasty. Because of the government's military obligations, natural disasters, the recovery of Guanzhong was at a slow pace and always with many fluctuations until the year of the Kangxi, Guanzhong gradually recovered. Within such background, the number of families who could afford education was quite limited. What is worse is the limited literati only focused on the examinations. Consequently, Daoxue was less popular than that of Ming's times. So it means from the early Qing to the middle 18th century, almost 200 years, Guanzhong stayed the same. The three scholars shared similar concerns, like they all criticized the examination culture because scholars only seek fame and wealth while being indifferent to morality. They lamented for the world lost the way it should work and the loss of genuine learning. And they have different understanding of genuine learning. I will come back to this point later. They rejected the fashionable literature, composition, and evidential learning. They think this doesn't belong to the genuine learning. For example, Li Yuanchun thinks the popularity of literature, composition, and gaozheng lead to the loss of the correct learning. They all rejected sectarianism from different reasons. Their contemporary concern is where their theory rooted in, and their theories decided how they formulate Guanxue. So what is Li Yong's theory and how did he construct Guanxue? For Li Yong, he thinks genuine learning is 明体适用. 体 is to comprehend and clarify the way and preserve the pure heart, mind, and applications to order things and manage things. Together, Mingti reference to the clarify the essence. 适用 means practical application. Mingti includes both Cheng-Zhu and Lu-Wang doctrines, and Yong only reference to the action that is the outgrowth of the fundamental values. In his theory, Ti and Yong accordingly equal to Li Xue, moral and statecraft. He described Ti as root and Yong as branches. It means the general learning is the integration of Li Xue and statecraft. The integration of Li Xue and statecraft is also his criteria for constructing Guanxue. Therefore, Li Yong advocated to repair the Guanzhong Academy for discussing learning and encourage students to learn Li Xue and statecraft. He also cooperated with officials, for example, such as the Director of Education to select officials by Li Xue and statecraft. In the lineage of his Guanxue, he placed more importance on Feng Congwu than on Zhang Zai, because he thinks Lu Nan and Feng Congwu contribute to the flourish of Guanxue because their contribution to Li Xue in Guanzhong. Li Yong said, the lineage of Guanxue, Zhang Zai created, Jingye succeeded, Feng Congwu epitomized. Guanxue therefore was revitalized. Although Li Yong didn't write any work on Guanxue, he constructed Guanxue as a school integrating Li Xue and statecraft, and this kind of Guanxue is an example of the correct learning, which could revive to the way the world should work. As we know, in the early Qing dynasty, that Cheng-Zhu school is a mainstream and official school. So Li Yong's attitude towards this Cheng-Zhu school and Lu-Wang school brought him harsh critique. For example, Li Guangdi, a famous official of Cheng-Zhu school, satirized Li Yong's learning for being ridiculous because the Guan school lineage was terminated already at the end of late Ming dynasty. In this sense, Li Guangdi expelled Li Yong from the lineage of Guanzhong Daoxue. As the most renowned student of Li Yong, Wang Xinjing defended Li Yong's learning by his construction of Guanxue and his theory. So Wang Xinjing is my second case. For Wang Xinjing, his particular focus is sectarianism and general learning. He thinks that sectarianism leads to the obscure Neo-Confucianism. He regards connecting all schools as a responsibility scholars should bear, and how to connect all schools, and what is the general learning. For Wang Xinjing, his mentor Li Yong's learning is the answer. So based on Li Yong's theory of 明体适用, Wang Xinjing developed the theory of 全体大用真体施工. It means the completity and practical application in substantial things would be the truth and practice. Wang Xinjing believed 全体大用真体施工, it is what Song and Ming scholars had always upheld. And 全体大用真体施工, it is his precondition to construct Guanxue. And his most well-known work in constructing Guanxue is his sequel to Feng Congwu's Guanxue Bian. In the preface of Guanxue Bian, he said, compelling Guanzhong Daoxue history is to sketch the lineage of succession the way Daotong in Guanzhong, and Daotong is 全体大用真体施工. The one cycle consists of 6 juans with 50 people, 2 juan more than Feng Congwu's original version, in total 14 people. The newly selected scholars are mainly at the ancient times and Ming-Qing part. This arrangement intends to trace the origin and explore the transmission of Guanxue. At the beginning, he and 6 sages, Fuxi, Taibo, Zhongyong King, Wen Qingwu, and Duke of Zhou, he said, Fuxi is the origin of cosmos and Daoxue, but more importantly, he's an ancestor of Guanxue. In the end, it is late Ming scholars, Wang Xinjing and Feng Congwu, Zhang Shundian, and scholars without any intellectual lineage. In this part, he included Wang Zheng. In terms of Wang Zheng's achievement on statecraft, although he was aware of Wang Zheng's belief in Christianity. So the last figure is Li Yong. Wang Xinjing classified Li Yong, who was not within any intellectual application, as the stream of Guanxue and appended his disciplines to Li Yong's biography. He particularly mentioned how Feng Congwu school work inspired the 17-year-old Li Yong to explore the origin of Confucianism, thereby emphasizing the connection between Li Yong's and Feng Congwu's scholarships. With this arrangement, Li Yong became the transmitter of the succession of the Wei in Guanzhong, accordingly responding to the question of Guanxue's transmission raised by Li Guangdi. So to conclude Wang Xingjing, he offered us a new narrative that Guanxue is a true learning with a long, unbroken history rooted in Guanzhong from ancient times to the Qing area. And in this lineage, Zhang Zai is no longer considered as the founder of Guanxue. Obviously, the standard of Wang Xingjing's genealogy of Guanxue is more open than that of Feng Congwu. At the same time, this openness had drawn many questions. Li Yuanchun, someone who was active a little bit later, wrote another sequel to Feng Congwu's Guanxue Bian. Li Yuanchun is my third case. Now, as I have mentioned before, Li Yuanchun's Cheng-Zhu follower, he believed Cheng-Zhu's learning is the only kind of correct learning. And his belief in Cheng-Zhu's learning is well known. But I think there is one point is less noticed. That is a reason why Li Yuanchun believed only Zhuzi's learning could provide the correct values. In Li Yuanchun's theory, he said learning should have both inner and outer sides, and Zhuzi's learning is precisely the integration of both. In other words, Zhuzi's learning is correct because it integrates both inner and outsides. Inner and outsides here refer to moral and practice, or Qi and Yong. So because of his belief in Zhuzi's learning, he rejected sectarianism because sectarianism brought attacks on Zhuzi's learning, then Zhuzi's doctrine couldn't be recognized in the world. The insistence on the unity of Tiyong and rejecting sectarianism is Li Yuanchun's criteria to construct his lineage of Guanxue. His construction of Guanxue is also the result of his local consciousness, his local pride. He was so proud that from the past to the present, few could be parallel to the fine customs and great achievements of scholars of our Qing. But the scholars who attempt to save the world was unknown. Therefore, he endeavored to compile Daoxue history of Guanzhong. The sequel to Guanxue Bian is just one case. And the most influential work is a collection, 4 select books in the learning of the Wei tradition in Guanzhong, Guanzhong Daomai 4种书. And all his work shows how he constructed Guanxue. I would just take 2 examples. The first example is one of his 2 prose poems, Qin Fu. This eulogy includes 4 groups of historical figures: political achievement, Ru, literature, and Jieyi, integrity and righteousness. Li Yunan, Feng Congwu, Li Yong, Wang Xingjing all belong to this integrity and righteousness part. Li Yuanchun explained that those who are known for their righteousness knew the way as it is, took Li as the correct approach, and their learning inherited the genuine learning. In the sequel to Qin Fu, he ended military leaders because only being distinguished in both literature and military arts is the formation of virtue. Another example is his sequel to Guanxue Bian, and he thinks Feng Congwu's work didn't reach all succeeding generations and intends to revitalize the correct learning. He added a total of 20 people to Guanxue Bian. In this sequel, he valued learning as well as political achievement, because political achievement cannot be achieved without learning, unlike Feng Congwu's Li Xue and Neo-Confucian, apolitical criteria. Therefore, Li Yuanchun ended You Shixiong, one of Zhang Zai's discipline, into the lineage on account of his political achievement. In his lineage of Guanxue, Li Yuanchun worshipped Wang Jianqiang because Wang Jianqiang is a follower of Zhu Xi's learning and pursued the integration of the inner and outer sides. Li Yuanchun said, Wang Jianqiang's learning is a correct learning. Although he's not talented as Li Yong, his achievement is over that of Li because Li Yong followed Wang Yangming's learning. Li Yuanchun saw Zhang Zai only as one member of the Cheng-Zhu lineage rather than particular focus on Zhang Zai's unique learning. So with Li Yuanchun's construction, Guanxue is a school followed Cheng-Zhu's learning but combining Ti and Yong. And through construction of Guanxue, Li Yuanchun intended to set a model of correct learning for the world. In Qinfu, he said, although these art scholars were West, they could be regarded as a model for all under heaven. Unfortunately, he did not elaborate this part much. And so far is how Guanxue is constructed in the Qing dynasty. And then I move to my conclusion part. As I have already shown, although the three scholars are different from different philosophical backgrounds, they all claim that the correct learning is a unit of moral philosophy and statecraft in Ti and Yong. This understanding for genuine learning is also their criteria to formulate Guanxue genealogy. Therefore, Guanxue became a school which combines Ti and Yong. And this is a new characteristic of Guanxue, constructing Guanxue. Because in the late Ming dynasty, Feng Congwu didn't endow Guanxue with any particular doctrines, but only defined Guanxue as a neo-Confucius school of the Guangdong region. Feng was also against to include scholars in because of their political and other statecraft achievement into Guanxue lineage. And what the three scholars are in line with Feng Congwu is their open-minded attitude towards sectarianism, and thereby formulate Guanxue as one all-inclusive school with no regard to sectarianism. And the last point is the inheritance of Zhang Zai's unique learning. As I have already shown, none of the three scholars have considered or to inherit or explore Zhang Zai's distinctive doctrines in their construction. I would say the significance of Zhang Zai in the genealogy of Guanxue has been further downplayed by Qing Guanzhong scholars, and therefore the dominant impression of Guanxue is questionable. The last is about the Qing, some reflection on the Qing intellectual world. As we know, the Qing intellectual world, the Neo-Confucianism was no longer the only and dominant scholarship, but in Guangdong, these all three scholars still valued moral philosophy and Neo-Confucianism. They were influential scholars and taught in many Confucian academics in Guangdong. I think it is fair to say that from the late Qing to 19th century, the influential scholarship in Guangdong was still Neo-Confucianism. Although many locality only focus on the examinations, there exists a Daoxue literary community in Guangdong. The image that Neo-Confucianism lost its central place since the Ming-Qing transition, suggested by many previous Ming-Qing historians, cannot be applied in Guangdong. So when we accept that Guanxue is a constructed concept, how shall we understand some other similar region Daoxue school, for example, the Luoxue tradition? Is that possible that Luoxue is also a constructed category through history like Guanxue? That is my presentation today. Thank you.